This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lori Watson and the co-host of Foreplay.
I'm your co-host, George Fowler, former firefighter, your couples therapist who loves to talk about sex.
Woo! Let's discuss everything about the best sexual techniques to building your emotional intimacy, which is really necessary for great sex.
We bring sound, concrete tools to reframe your relationship problems and learn how to fall in love again and feel desire.
Listen to Foreplay Radio on the iHeart app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, friends. It's Laura. Kind of different to hear from me at the beginning here, but I am going to be running sans Zach today, but I am interviewing a guy who has a really cool job. So if you remember, we had a pilot episode where we brought on a pilot. We want to talk about his career, how he got to where he's at, any lessons learned. And we asked our listeners if you happen to know of anyone that you think would be a really great fit. And our listener wrote in and said, you need to talk to my brother-in-law, Hiram. Hiram is an animator at Disney and has worked on movies like Moana, Frozen, Bolt, Tangled, and it just goes on and on. And of course, I was like, yes, please introduce me. And Hiram was kind enough to join us today to talk about his work, specifically working with Olaf, but also some lessons learned along the way. And I, of course, am always listening for ways that we can draw some connections to lessons learned in the workplace to how we can better our relationships. So stay tuned. I think this is a cool conversation. I'm here with Hiram Osmond. Did I pronounce everything correctly? I just want to make sure.
You did, yes.
Good. Yeah. So this is kind of fun because it was a listener who actually contacted us and threw you under the bus, offered you up to the lion's den and said, you have to talk to, it's brother-in-law. Is that correct? You have to talk to my brother-in-law. He has a really cool job. Yeah.
Yes.
Which I'm really glad I got the insider. Now I know it's all about who you know in order to get really cool people on the podcast.
I mean, we're sort of a reclusive bunch, animators. We don't do we don't do a lot of interviews, I guess. But yeah, no, I'm happy to do it.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited because number one, I mean, she basically said he's the Olaf guy, and I'm like, what does that mean, the Olaf guy? So we have this series, and I guess a few episodes ago, we interviewed a pilot, and we wanted to know, like, tell us about your career, tell us about your job. How did you get to where you're at? What makes you successful? So we're kind of picking on people who we think have pretty cool, interesting jobs, which is fun because I said you're probably a big hit at dinner parties. Although, do you go to dinner parties if you're a recluse? I don't know.
Well, we Osmonds have many dinner parties.
Okay. You stick to your own. You stick to your group.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So I wanted to hear, about your career. Can you tell our audience members a little bit about what you do and what you're sort of known for in your career?
Yeah. So I am an animator at Disney Animation Studios, which was, really a lifelong dream since I was a kid. I always wanted to do it. And awesome. I came to Disney back in 2007. My first movie was Bolt. I don't know if you've seen Bolt.
Bolt. Dog? Is there a dog involved?
The dog Bolt movie. And really have sort of been there ever since. And honestly, it's interesting because, I said I've always wanted to do it. I look back and just I feel pretty blessed that I had parents who were just always sort of very supportive of that. Just sort of, oh, you want to work for Disney? Okay, go for it. And I don't know if they actually believed it would happen, but they certainly didn't discourage it, which I've always appreciated.
Yeah.
And just, I guess, super long story short, I started out in an internship with a game company in Salt Lake City, eventually applied to Disney Animation, and now living the dream. Really enjoying it.
So this is like location number 2. It's not like you had this big ladder or where you like jumped around from place to place to place. It sounds like you kind of just went straight there after being at this gaming company.
Yeah, I've just been so fortunate in my life because I landed there at Disney and I just love it there, and the people there and the experience there that I really haven't wanted to work at another studio. So no, it's been great.
That's amazing. I'm kind of curious because if this has always been your dream, it can be kind of intimidating. So a little bit about my background is that when I got out of grad school, all of the books that I was reading, everything that referenced, my field of study as a therapist was always referencing this guy, John Gottman. And he's kind of like the founder of couples therapy research. And so I'm reading these books and I got out of grad school and I literally like shoot for the stars. Where would I want to work? And I applied at the Gottman Institute and said, I want to work for you, which is the top. It was the absolute place I wanted to be. And I don't think there's many people out there where they see a dream and they're like, well, maybe I'll just go for my like B option. But it sounds like you also went for your absolute dream of where you wanted to be and applied. Did you only apply once and get hired on?
Oh, no. I mean, from my time at the game studio, I applied to DreamWorks and got told no.
Yeah.
And then applied to Disney and got the yes, and just was super excited about it. And it's funny because, I teach as well. And I tell my students, definitely shoot for the stars, right? That's why you're doing this. You want to work for Disney, you want to work for Pixar, wherever. But then also don't miss out on the stepping stones that are going to get you there. Right. And that's kind of what that game studio experience was for me.
The stepping stone. I think one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got about, having a dream and being in a career path that you want to be in is don't get derailed. So don't, take that position that might be dangling that carrot of it being, a better paying job or whatever it might be, but it's out of your field. It's not in the direction of where you want to go because you get derailed so quickly. You get good at what you're doing at this other position, and then more doors open and you get further and further away. But just keep in the direction, the stepping stones that get you closer and closer to where you want to be.
Yeah. And that's why I feel like I've been so blessed with the support I've had in my life, because you can easily get derailed. I remember in high school, we had Disney animator come to a shopping mall near us. And, this is back in the day when no one had any idea how to actually work for Disney. Right. So it was like, oh, great, I'll ask this animator some questions and he'll teach me how to do it. And I remember I listened to his presentation and I waited in this long line to finally talk to an actual Disney animator. And
cool.
And I finally got up to him and I was like, oh, I love you. I want to do what you do. Teach me. And his response to me was, no joke. His response was, kid, it's really hard.
Okay.
You just have to draw so well. And so good luck.
Interesting. Didn't put any wind behind your sails on that one, huh?
No, it was very deflating. But again, because I had just super supportive parents and friends and teachers, I didn't get up and kept going. I mean, I look back at that and I go, he didn't tell me anything that wasn't true, right?
Right.
It's very competitive and it does require a lot of work. But again, thanks to some people who helped me not get derailed, I kind of stayed on that path.
Okay. I'm starting to see some parallels, some teaching opportunities, but I'm going to wait till the end because I kind of want to hear about the evolution. You started off working at Bolt. And what is it as an animator, if you can just describe in like layman's terms for me, what does an animator do? And it sounds like that's where you started. Are you animating now, or are you doing more of the directing part? So I want to hear about the evolution and what specifically an animator does.
Yeah. So an animator, I mean, right. And I've had various roles at the studio. I was head of animation on Moana. I did direct a series of Olaf shorts that came out recently. I
started watching them, I'm not going to lie.
But I'm an animator. It is what I love to do. And what we do as animators, it's CG animation, right? So there's a difference between traditional animation, hand-drawn animation, and computer animation. So computer animation is what I do. And the way I sort of describe it is it really is in many ways sort of just very advanced puppetry.
Okay.
In that we create these characters and we build them three-dimensionally within the computer. And then we manipulate those characters almost as you would a puppet. And that's kind of, it goes through so many different processes, but that's sort of what the end result is. And so we're in charge of character performance, how these characters move, how they act. We take the voice talent, the recordings, and then we animate to that. But it's so much fun to just kind of bring these characters to life.
Did you start by sketching by hand and then move to the computer? Or does it kind of go back and forth?
Yeah, so I actually trained hand-drawn, so with just drawing. So, and my whole life growing up, I just wanted to draw. I didn't want to do CG animation. In fact, when CG first came out, I was like, it's cool, but I just want to draw. And it wasn't until I actually started CG animation at the game studio that I was like, wow, I love this. I want to do this. So, cool. So yeah, so I draw. The CG animation is not, as far as my part, the animation is in the computer. So I'm not drawing it. I'm actually kind of, as I mentioned, that kind of CG puppetry sort of idea.
Right.
But we use drawings all the time we do draw-overs on top of our CG animation to kind of fix things. And so we do. I guess that was a long way of saying yes, both.
Yes. Cool. I just had this moment where I was thinking about, as an animator, you're listening to the same voice over and over and over, I'm guessing, where you're kind of like, do you ever just like rewind, play, just so that you can start to manipulate your puppet to be able to match that? Do you ever dream of actors' voices because you're listening to them so much?
I do actually. That's funny. You should bring that up.
Yeah,
we do. And it's funny, like, especially during this whole pandemic where we've had to work from home, my family is starting to get a firsthand look at what I do, really. And it drives them insane because I have to play these lines over and over and over and over again. So yeah, it definitely sticks in the head.
That's interesting. So I guess I always thought that the animation came first and then the voices came second, but it seems like the voices come first and then the animation, or are you kind of doing them simultaneously?
Exactly. The recording of the audio comes first.
Yeah.
Sometimes on rare occasions, we do it the opposite way when we have to. But for the most part, we'll record, like for Olaf, we would record Josh Gad. We get all that dialogue and we would animate to that.
Okay, now I have another question. With an actor, I mean, when they're reading their lines, are you ever getting video footage of their face so that you can see how that particular actor is sort of construing their face and moving it around in their body language so that you can take some cues in order to develop the Olaf character off of Josh, I guess?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely, we do that. But we very much look at that. Really, as animators, we're observation is key for us. Right. We're creating the illusion of life, really. And so when we record the dialogue for all of our characters and the voice talent comes in, we record that video so that we as animators can kind of just watch them.
Yeah.
I'll tell you with Olaf, and this is just a fun little thing about Olaf. When we were creating Olaf, I actually recorded some video footage of my son, who was kind of at the time, sort of a toddler age. Because the more Olaf evolved into the character he was, the more he really was sort of like a toddler, right? Just naive and just full of wonder and energy.
I even love the way you say wonder, because I'm such a huge Olaf fan, and I'm just imagining, at least in the second movie, he has a specific song about when he gets older, and it is kind of filled with like, I'm going to be older someday, and I'm going to know everything, and it is really, you're right, it is very toddler-esque.
Yeah, and so we wanted to capture that, and so. Yeah. So I looked a lot at my son. I recorded that video and I brought it into the crew and we kind of looked at that. And that's kind of how we come up with the mannerisms, the movement, the emotion of these characters. It's a lot of observation.
That's really interesting. Okay, well, let's get into this a little bit. Personal details. So you've been working with Frozen, you've been working with Moana, you've worked with Bolt. Anything else that I'm missing that has been in your history at Disney?
Yeah, Tangled is an
Cool.
experience I will never forget. That was a great film that I worked on. Wreck-It Ralph, Zootopia.
Dang.
Yeah. A lot of those movies. I know I'm forgetting some, but
is anybody else starstruck? I feel very, very honored to meet someone who has such a rap sheet like you. That's amazing.
Oh, you're very kind.
Nope, I'm definitely not. My listeners know I'm not a kind woman, but I give compliments when compliments are due. So you're married. You have 4 kids. How long have you been married for?
We have been married 18 years as of September.
Wow. Do you have plans for your 20th anniversary? Is that something that you're even looking forward to?
Yes, actually, what we've been discussing. We really want to go to Japan. I mean,
yes,
we would love to go to Japan. So we're thinking possibly that.
Okay, awesome. My husband has wanted to go to Japan for so long. I actually think we're going to take our son there probably in a couple of years. We're waiting for him to get really good on skis so that we can go and hit the mountains in Japan. So that's in the future. You know, Zach and I are fans of getting support, especially during abnormally stressful times like these, and that is why we have partnered with BetterHelp to put you in contact with licensed professional counselors in your area. Tap into the world's largest network of licensed, accredited, and experienced counselors who can help you with a range of issues, including depression, anxiety, relationships, trauma, grief, and more. With BetterHelp's counselors, you get the same professionalism and quality that you would expect from an in-office counselor, with the ability to communicate when and how you want. The matching process is quick but thorough, and you have the ability to communicate with your therapist how you like it, messaging, over the phone, or video conferencing. I know in-person therapy sessions aren't feasible right now, but don't let that stop you from getting the support that you need. The cost is less than half of what Zach and I charge, which is kind of unheard of. So when you register with BetterHelp, you're supporting Marriage Therapy Radio so that we can keep doing what we love to do. Go to trybetterhelp.com/MTR to register and receive a special discount on your first month with BetterHelp. Okay, so the question that I have that I wanted to draw some parallels is you talked about supporting, like your parents were really supportive of your dream when you were young, and a piece of the puzzle that I find really important in healthy relationships is when your partners can be really supportive of your dreams and can hear your dream and become not only a cheerleader but somebody who is moving aside any barriers that you might have in your way and really allocating resources for your dream. And I'm just kind of wondering in your life, how you feel either your relationship with your partner or even you supporting your partner's dreams, how has that come into play? Do you guys support one another? Are you actively engaged in sort of understanding and knowing what the other person is wanting to do in their life and what their dreams are?
Yeah, that is such a great question. I could never do this profession without the amazing support of my wife. You talk about, you mentioned earlier, just setting aside barriers.
Yeah.
I mean, we got married in Utah. My wife is from Utah. She hasn't lived anywhere else. I get a phone call from Disney saying, hey, we want to hire you, but it's only for the run of show, meaning when the show's done, you don't have a job.
Wow.
And just the amazing support of my wife to say, you know what? I know this is your dream. I believe in you. We're going to pack up our home and move to this teeny little place in Burbank.
Wow. Packed it all up.
Packed it all up. 2 kids at the time. It's just amazing to me. And for her to, put her career pursuits on hold to realize that dream was pretty remarkable. So
I'm kind of wondering, I mean, how long does, if a run of show, because I'm thinking, why pack up a whole house? Because my guess is she was thinking more long-term, kind of had a vision of what you probably were capable of once getting your foot in the door with Disney. Because I would say, have a great time, babe. enjoy your run a show in California. I'll be here holding down the fort.
Right. Maybe that's just how naive we were back then. I don't know. But again, it speaks to her belief in me as an animator. And it really just did so much for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I talk about the difference between someone who's like encouraging you and maybe cheering you on from the sideline, where they're like, that's great. You have your dream, you pursue it. I'm over here just kind of like cheering you on, have a wonderful time. But then there's also a difference in like joining in your dream and making this like a family dream. Because if you have a dream for Disney, she got on board and she was like, I'm packing up. We're moving the kids. We're going to go to Burbank and we're going to make this happen. Have you been able to support some of the dreams that she has in her life?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because Becky, she has and is an amazing dancer. She was in scholarship at UVU pursuing her dance. You
cross-pollinated universities?
Yes, we
That's
did.
Probably a horrible way to put it. I don't mean it like that, right. But just so you know, you got the university, so University of Utah, and then you have Brigham Young, and you went to BU, right? Or BY is how they call it.
BYU,
yeah, BYU. Okay, cool. So
she was a way of saying that, cross-pollination.
I know. It sounds awful. Yeah. So what kind of a dancer was she?
She was modern dance.
Cool.
And amazing, beautiful. And I do want to say this because she very much wanted to start a family. And that was our decision together. We very much wanted to have children, but I also wanted to pursue my animation. So she put her dance on hold and made the choice to have children. We have 4 children, which is a massive responsibility.
Yeah, yeah.
which put her dancing pursuits on hold. Wow. So it was a huge sacrifice on her part for the benefit of our family.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. So is she back doing modern dance or doing some dance now as a woman who has sort of children who are somewhat grown? Your youngest is 9, right? 9 to 16.
Yeah, we're getting there. She's at the moment. It's funny you bring this up because we've just had discussions about her teaching again. Yes. Which I think would be wonderful for her, and she's looking to pursue. So. Mm-hmm.
That is wonderful. I think it's really healthy in a relationship to be able to have your own individual dreams that you might be pursuing, whether they be career dreams or be, dreams of like I always have a dream of wanting to run and kind of I'm back to running. I just recently had an injury. I broke my collarbone, but I just want to let the listeners know I'm 2 months out. I ran for the first time. It feels so good.
Nice.
So to have your own individual pursuits, your own individual friends, your own individual interests, but also as a couple, really having these pursuits that you have together, like wanting to travel and really looking forward to wanting to go to Japan, wanting to like immerse yourself in the culture, wanting to whatever it might be. Do you guys have goals or dreams that the two of you are chasing together?
Our financial independence goals are always something we pursue together. That's important to us, and I think just the way we're united in pursuing our faith together. Mm-hmm. We're both members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that to us is a huge focus. Just our faith and the raising of our children. That's especially right now that there's so many crazy things happening in the world that our focus on our family and kind of putting that first.
Yeah. I think the best way I heard it described is basically it was kind of like all of the distractions of the world sort of, it's almost like when you have new fresh snow and all of a sudden the snow comes and it lays down and everything around you gets really quiet. And that's how they described going into COVID kind of in like the March, April time, is that it was like fresh snow. Everything got really quiet and the focus was really on the family. All of the outside distractions were really removed. And it was just an opportunity to kind of curl in and reevaluate what's going on inside the home. And I really liked that descriptor. It made a lot of sense to me, put a lot of extra stress on the family. I've sort of seen this evolution where when COVID first hit, people were going, oh my gosh, I actually feel a lot better. I feel like I'm finally able to focus on my family and finally able to show up for family dinner and finally able to like see how my kids are doing and check in with my wife. And now 6-7 months later, they're going, I've had enough. I have too much. The pendulum swung the whole other direction, too much togetherness. I'm really ready to have a little more individuality here.
Yeah, it's such an interesting time because I totally agree. When it first started, all that extra stuff melted away, right? Because it had to, and it put a lot of time together. It also kind of made you realize how little time you were having together. I can see how that pendulum has swung.
Yeah. Balance. Well, I think, one other question that I have kind of going back to, you probably didn't know I was going to ask you so many personal questions about your relationship, but that's what I do. But about your career, what have been some just really good lessons that you have learned along the way? If you were sitting down with somebody and they're like, tell me something you've learned. There has to be something that sticks out to you as a lesson learned as you have gotten into your career path and to where you're at now at Disney.
Yeah, so definitely some lessons were learned. I think the biggest one for me that I do reflect on a lot is, speaking of when we first moved out to California to come and work for Disney, I was out to prove myself, right? New guy at Disney Animation. It was amazing artist at Disney. I needed to prove myself. And the mistake I made, which I see clearly now, is I was so devoted to that, proving myself, that I gave every spare moment I had to it. Because, I had to prove myself. It became so difficult for us. I think it was the hardest time of our marriage, really, because new environment, new job. I was working late every day. We were just kind of passing each other, just barely saw each other.
Yeah.
Which was very hard on her with 2 kids, new environment. And I sort of had this revelation along the way. And I kind of think of it this way, I talked about how as animators, we create the illusion of life, right? That's what we do.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of this revelation, this realization that there I was devoting all my time and energy to this illusion of life and just completely forgetting about my life. And honestly, I love working for Disney. I think it's an amazing job, but ultimately I'm just making cartoons, right? It's really what it is. I love it.
Yeah.
But my life is my wife and my children. And I was completely forgetting that. And so, as I came to myself and had a little bit of an awakening there, I started to realize that we have to make time for each other, despite this crazy industry I'm in and the crazy time frames of these projects. We need to make that time count. And I think we've done that, and it's really paid off.
Yeah. There's an exercise that I have couples go through, which is taking a look at just a sheet, many, and probably like 100 different core values that you might have as a human being, and having couples really narrow in on, I might have these core values, you might have those core values, but where do we align? What are we doing here as a couple? Because you're really creating this little culture that you're creating with your family of 6 and maybe an animal or 2 in there too. Yeah. They count for me. I have a Weimaraner, and he's definitely rounds out our family of 4. But you're creating this culture. And when you're able to identify what are our core values that we both resonate on, that we both are creating this life around, it helps to make those decisions seem all that more obvious, that when you get derailed and off track and you might be spending a little bit too much time at work, a little too much time focused on proving yourself, it's like, well, this doesn't actually align with what our value system is, which might be more focused on really being present with our family. And so when you fall away from that, it becomes all the more obvious. It's easier to have those conversations too, because you're kind of like, hey, this is our mission statement as a family, and these decisions that we might be doing or making. Zach, who you met just briefly, I didn't even mention why Zach's not here. I'll tell you guys in a second. But Zach says you spend your resources in 2 ways. You have money and time. And if you're getting derailed by using your time in a way that doesn't align with your family values, it's pretty easy and obvious to notice when you're getting off track. And so I really like couples to come down and have these like 3 core values that you just really focus on as a family and make a mission statement out of it. And it makes it a lot easier to decide whether or not you're spending your money incorrectly or you're spending your time incorrectly because it's not aligning with your core values.
Yeah, and I love the way you said that because, those core values are so important. I mean, Becky and I, we disagree on a lot of things. I mean, we do because we're human.
Absolutely.
But as long as our core values are in line, then that's going to make the difference. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll tell people now. So Zach hopped on and his poor internet was doing awful. And I know he's going to be so jealous that he wasn't able to chat with you. I have my image of Olaf. So my son has a stuffy and he's in the background. I hung him up on the wall so that Hiram would have a chance to see him because I'm just a huge fan of that character in general. And it's really neat to meet the guy who, so how does, I guess I want to clarify. I know you have a team of animators. Do you does it go through like different iterations with different people? Or do you feel like one of you is kind of like solely responsible for creating this image?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because no character at Disney is ever created by one person. It is a team effort. The first initial drawings of Olaf were done by Bill Schwab, who's the head of visual development on the show, and then Bill and I kind of took those drawings and we kind of went back and forth and we kind of sculpted what Olaf needed to be, and then you have to create all of his facial poses, and so it really is a team effort to kind of get Olaf to be who he is. As a supervisor, it's sort of my job to kind of define how he moves and kind of his personality as well.
That is very interesting. I guess I'm wondering, is there intersection between psychology and what you do? Because I'm imagining all of these facial expressions that you're talking about. And as therapists, we watch facial expressions all the time, body movements, everything. So I'm wondering, is there any intersection or any like training that you had to go through in order to understand facial movements and emotion and all of that?
Well, I think what we do, and this is something exercises we do as animators, is we really very much try and get into the head of our characters. We always need to try and understand what it is our characters are thinking, because if we don't know what our characters are thinking or what their personality is in any given moment, that's never going to come through in the animation. We'd just be guessing.
Yeah.
And some of the fun exercises we do are like with each character, really, we will sort of create a backstory to these characters. And it's funny, we even, have you seen Moana? The movie Moana? Yeah. So Hey, who's just this.
The chicken?
Rooster. Yeah. Right?
Rooster. Okay.
Right? We even gave him a backstory. This long, elaborate backstory.
Do you remember? I mean, how can you create a backstory for Hey?
The supervisor on Hey, Adam Green, I remember he typed up this big, long backstory, which is hilarious. Just this hilarious backstory. I don't remember the details, but we do that because it is so essential for us to know these characters and get inside their heads.
That's fascinating. Can I tell you a secret? Do you know what Peloton bikes are?
Yes.
I mean, you're like, I live in LA, Laura. Of course, I know what a Peloton is. All right. So in my mom's circle, a lot of these moms are getting Peloton bikes. And so I found that it would be really important to give each Peloton bike a personality and a backstory. And this might be a little too rated R for some listeners, but I like to give the Peloton bike so that when I ask them, have you ridden your bike? I name it a very sexy male name. And so it's like, have you ridden Jackson lately? And then I give Jackson a whole backstory as to who Jackson is. And so each of my moms get a little bit of a backstory and a name for their Peloton bike, just to give it some character. It's rated R, but I want to motivate them to get on that damn Peloton bike.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So, I'm going to let you off the hook on the dad joke because we're going to leave that one to Zach in case you have one that you really want to share, but I was going to let you off the hook.
Well, I have a joke I like.
All right. Let's hear it.
I do have a joke because it makes my kids chuckle. It makes me chuckle.
I'll give you a courtesy laugh regardless of if I like it or not. Okay.
I did not make this joke up, but I heard it. It's pretty good. I don't trust stairs. They're always up to something.
Okay. Do you know, what is it? My son said this to me the other day. He said, you can never break an escalator because they just become stairs. Something along that lines. This is my 5-year-old that was saying this. I think he heard it somewhere. Yeah. Hiram, thank you so much for joining us. And I heard this actually, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because I just did an interview for a gal. And one of the questions that she had at the end that I really appreciated was, she said she wants to spread the joy. And she said, is there an organization that is really important to you that you just want to throw out there for listeners to either check out, support financially? So I'm just going to pass that on to you. Is there an organization that's near and dear to your heart that you want to let others know about?
Absolutely. Operation Underground Railroad, which is an organization that fights human trafficking.
Cool.
I'm a huge supporter of it, and I would love to throw that out there. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Do you have social media accounts? Is that important to you?
Yeah, I have an Instagram account at Mr. Hiram.
Cool.
And I do a warm hugs campaign during the holidays.
Stop.
No, I do. So people can, if they have someone who needs just a little brightening during the holidays that would like an Olaf drawing, they can kind of just submit a message through my Instagram and I can send them a little Olaf drawing.
I'm in awe. That is so cool. Thank you so much for joining me and taking a little extra time out of your day to join our listeners and give us some cool insight into what happens in your world.
Yeah. My pleasure. Happy to do it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Marriage Therapy Radio. A huge thank you to Hiram Osmond, who doesn't normally do interviews, but joined our podcast specifically. So thank you so much. If you are looking to find Hiram, you can find him at Mr. Hiram on Instagram. So it's just Mr. Mr. and then Hiram, HYRUM. They call it the Warm Hugs campaign has already begun. So if you are looking to send a little hug, a little something to lift up the holiday spirits, find Mr. Hiram on Instagram, shoot him off a message and say, I would love to be a part of this campaign. Thank you for all of your time and attention, making your relationship better today than it was yesterday.